Labour Party members could be stripped of their vote for a future leader, which seems quite odd to me, as I thought the point of the parties was to create a democratic system to govern the party, its policy, its leadership. But it seems Labour are moving towards the Reform UK LTD model of dictatorship. MPs could be the only members who would be allowed to elect the next party leader under plans by Keir Starmer's allies, which they are calling the Liz Truss lock. Senior members in Labour are reportedly pushing for a controversial rule change at next month's party conference, which would overhaul how the party elects its new leader, according to the Times. Senior Labour figures are keen to avoid a Liz Truss Rishi Sunak situation, so senior Labour figures believe a similar scenario should be avoided at all costs and only want MPs to have a say over who should succeed Starmer as leader. There's a plan to bring a constitutional reform to the conference that would cut out the membership for electing a leader when they're in government and only allow MPs to decide, a senior Labour source told The Times. This is seen as the last reform that needs doing to siphon off any threat from the left. So essentially, they're making the Labour Party less democratic. So what's the point of even having Labour membership? It's an all-time low anyway under Starmer, so why not just get rid of them altogether? What's the point in having them? Curtis, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, this is nothing new. There's been a long-ranging battle inside the Labour Party between the Democrats and the anti-Democrats. In 1973, the group Campaign for Labour Party Democracy was founded by activists who have essentially, from day one, tried to democratise the Labour Party. It's so important that Labour is democratised because you cannot democratise Britain unless you democratise the Labour Party. And I mean, it's really striking when they say stuff like, "Well, it's trying to stop the Liz Truss effect." They're drawing a false equivalence. What they mean by that is, well, we had Jeremy Corbyn, they had Liz Truss. What we need is to bring politics back to the sensible centre, and ordinary people shouldn't have a stake in politics anymore. And that's what it is. And that's why they want to remove power away from members and give it back to the MPs, who disproportionately have too much power as it is. So this isn't about selecting high quality candidates or picking the best leader. This is picking loyalists for one, the Parliamentary Labour Party, and two, essentially the establishment. They want establishment friendly politicians. Now, figureheads in both the Tory and Labour Party, but specifically in the Labour Party, see politics as a game. They do not see democratic participation as a good thing. In fact, they see it as a bad thing, which is why they've tried to change rules before. Nominations to from MPs, if you want to get on the ballot to run for leader, you have to get X amount of MPs in order to stand on the ballot. It was at 10%. And in 2021, they increased it to 20%. The reason being is because they didn't want another Jeremy Corbyn. The thing is, though, even though it keeps out the left when you impose anti-democratic measures, it also disproportionately affects women and people of color. I mean, it's pretty obvious to point out that Labour, the supposedly more progressive party, has still only had white men, whereas the Conservative Party, who I would say the far more racist party, the party that pushes far more racist policies, has had Rishi Sunak, has had Theresa May, has had Margaret Thatcher, people of color and also women in the top role. And one of the ways to counteract that is to not necessarily say, well, we should have a token minority. Let's push this particular person of color or this particular woman who aligns with our ideals. The way to do it is to open up the democratic process, and eventually you will see more people from different communities. But they absolutely hate giving power away to the members, and it's what they're doing is they're essentially drawing a false equivalent. That's why they're saying stuff like the Liz Truss effect or the Liz Truss lock, because they think that the left is exactly the same as the right. They think that Jeremy Corbyn is the left-wing version of Boris Johnson, of Liz Truss. Now, obviously, that can be further from the truth because, first of all, Liz Truss has been hanging out with Steve Bannon, supporting Donald Trump, writing books about the West and the fall of civilization, essentially parroting fascist rhetoric, right? She's significantly right-wing. Jeremy Corbyn isn't that left wing, at least as a politician and the policies he supported. I mean, it was a very basic social democratic document in 2017 and 2019. There wasn't anything radically left. Yet the mainstream media and the centrist politicians think there's an equivalence there. There isn't. And to stop any kind of popular will or popular policies, and for the suits, the men in suits, the Tony Blair Institute guys and the Labour Together guys, these people want to push their own ideas and policies, but they know they're not popular, right? People don't like the policies established by Blairites. Even though John Major came up with PFI, it was Tony Blair who accelerated PFI. PFI is a disaster. It's outsourcing payments to the private sector to pay for the NHS, but in the long run, we have to pay them back, and private companies make a profit off of our healthcare, right? These are policies the majority of people don't support, but you can't get that enacted inside the Labour Party if you have a democratic process. So they're trying to push their unpopular ideas, unpopular policies, and the only way they can do it is to have loyalists and yes men, and to make sure there is zero democratic participation.
But I just want to zoom out for a second and just look at Labour under Keir, right, away from government. So we
Mm.
firstly have the PR vote, right? So at one of the party conferences, I believe it was, correct me if I'm wrong, the membership voted in favour of pushing for proportional representation. They voted yes on it, and Keir Starmer said no. Then we have the election, right, where multiple NEC members, obviously famously Luke Akehurst, parachuting themselves into all these seats, and then we had other people who were close to Labour suddenly, running for all these seats, and now we have this. We have another slap in the face of the Labour membership, which is again at an all-time record low. Um, to say your vote doesn't matter, because essentially, if they get what they want, right, if they're saying we don't want a change of leadership through the membership vote while we're still in government, if Labour happen to get past the line in the next election, that means the members won't get to vote on who the party leader is for 10 years. So essentially, they're saying, oh, you don't get a vote until we're out of government. It's just ridiculous. I don't understand what has happened to the Labour Party under Keir Starmer, because again, it's just been constantly undermined. It's just been a vehicle for this establishment guy to get into power, which obviously other people along the way, like those members who parachuted themselves into seats, have used that vehicle too along the way to get into power. So what's next? What can we expect next from the Labour Party under Keir Starmer? Because he's just I don't even recognize the party anymore. We've talked about this a million times, but if we look at the full story, I don't even know what to say anymore. I don't even know if I'd even end up near supporting them if we ever came to a point where it was a closer vote than it was at the most recent election. Because what's the point? They don't represent us in any way anymore.
Well, you said that we could see a scenario where members don't get to vote on a leader for 10 years. The truth is, members will not get to decide the leader ever again, right? You think this is just a policy for when they're in government? No,
Mm.
it's a preface what they would do regardless of whether in government or not. Okay. The last democratic leadership election happened in 2020, and that was the election of Keir Starmer. He needs to remember that he got into his position through the same leadership rules as Jeremy Corbyn, right? That's where he got with the membership votes. The Labour Party will never, ever allow that again. They'll start by in government because they want their correct person. But if they were
Mhm.
to somehow lose office, do you think they're going to still allow a member led decision? No, of course they won't. So I'm telling you right now, this is members. There's no point being a member, right? Essentially, you're wasting your money, because the idea of a member, even before we had a democratic leadership election, where it was based on a electoral college vote where MPs had a certain percentage, members had a certain percentage, and unions had a certain percentage, right? There was still a reason to join the Labour Party, because you could potentially influence your candidate, you could potentially influence conference. But on every single level, the democratic decision making has been ripped out, and the leadership is sort of just the final curtain, right? So as you pointed out, candidate selections, a very good democratic decision-making process where you can actually get people in positions to become an MP who are actually liked, not weird robotic parachuted people, but people who are liked by their local constituency Labour Party. They are someone who's served the community. They are someone who obviously wants to represent people of the area. And when you have more democratic participation, you have higher quality candidates. They've absolutely destroyed that, despite Keir Starmer saying in his leadership bid that every every candidate selection should be democratic. He lied about that. Then obviously when it comes to conference, Keir Starmer ignores all of the motions that will pass, including PR. So there's no point being in the Labour Party if you can't choose your candidate and you can't even make a policy decision, or you can't even sway policy decisions at conference, and now you can't choose your leader. So there is zero reason why you should give your money to the party. You'd actually spend your money better elsewhere, maybe joining another party, or maybe, I don't know, donating to unions or worthwhile causes, and spend your time doing activism outside the party. There was a point in time where I argued that the left should occupy all political spaces, and that included inside the Labour Party, especially between 2015 and 2019. That was the place, obviously, where the left was its most vibrant, because that was a real vehicle for change, right? But after 2 years of Keir Starmer, you can't even apply the smallest amount of pressure inside the party. In fact, you end up getting yourself kicked out because you like to tweet. So you're actually wasting your time. And it's really funny to see John McDonnell, a guy who I really respect, who is incredibly weak when it comes to attacking Keir Starmer. I mean, he says stuff like, well, I'm going to send a strongly worded letter now. And he tweeted today saying, oh, these leadership rules are really worrying. We should change them. It's like, John, the game's over. The Labour Party are not going to change, right? You're wasting your time. The Labour Party is well and truly dead. It is dead. At least, I mean, look, I support the Green Party at the last election. I'm not a member of the party. I don't want to particularly join any party, but at least with the Green Party, they're a fully democratic one. You can join it. You can actually help shape how it looks.
Mm.
And the Labour Party are anathema by that. And you also talk about membership numbers, right? Membership numbers are down, but you do realize that the Labour rights see low membership figures as an achievement. They're not worried about it. That's their plan. In fact, I can't remember which figure it was. Was it? I can't remember which MP, but they said, "Oh, it looks like a lot of people have left the Labour Party since Jeremy Corbyn. That's a good thing." And she kind of insinuated they're all anti-Semites anyway, right? Which they weren't. They see that as consent to say, "Good, we don't want ordinary working people to join the party. We've got our money." Remember the last election, the Labour Party was the richest party. It had the highest amount of donors, but these donors were billionaire donors. They outspent the Tories and raised more money than the Tories from big donors. So they don't even need the money from members. Next, it'll be unions. I mean, they're trying to attack the unions as it is, but we'll get to a point where unions will have completely zero power in the party. And they will finally reshape the image of what the Labour Party wants to be, according to sort of Tony Blair, is supposedly a progressive, not union party. It's not even progressive. So they want to hollow out workers. They want to hollow out the democratic process. And they're like 95% there. So if you're a member of the Labour Party watching, honestly, just leave. You're wasting your money. Save your money. Even if you're paying £3 a month, right? You can get a pint on happy hour. That's worth it than giving any of your energy to this utterly anti-democratic, terrible, disgusting anti-worker party.
I almost said, yeah, you can get a pint at Spoons for that. And it's like, no, don't go to Spoons. Do not go there. Do not give that man any more money. But one last little thought on that is what's really frustrating is that because this is like to any outside observer, this is not a story, right? Like your average Joe isn't really going to care about this. It's people who pay really attention to politics. So what's frustrating is that probably no journalist is ever going to sit down with Keir Starmer and ask him about this because their priority is to ask questions about government, right? It's number 10, government, Israel, whatever, US, whatever it might be. No journalist is going to waste their 5 minutes asking questions about, internal party processes, really.
I do just want to say it's that, but also they're just not interested because client journalists, those in the mainstream media, think it's a good thing. They won't pull up Keir Starmer and, oh, do you not think this is a bit bad. I mean, you were elected on this platform where members could vote for you, a democratic selection, and now you're sort of reversing that. They don't care because they, in their eyes, think that's a good thing. The left is never seen as a serious political actor, not just among the Labour Party, but among the entire mainstream media. So when there is attacks on the left, the media either joins in on those attacks or they ignore
Mm,
it because it's not interesting to them. It's actually
yeah.
would be a more interesting story if the Tories did it. I'd expect more attacks if the Tories turned around and started. I mean, they don't have the most democratic selection process, but uh, watered it down even more. I'd actually see more pushback from the media because they'll say, "Oh, look at Rishi Sunak or whoever's leading the party in the future. Oh, this sort of top-down authoritarianness, kind of like Boris Johnson when he sacked all those MPs." That's a story for them. But when it's the sort of the man who is, I mean, Starmer's the guy now. He's the establishment pick. If he does it, you won't hear anything. So the media don't care. They're probably
Yeah.
some of them are well aware of it, but they're not interested because they secretly support it.
Patreon.com, Turn Left Media. Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you, Turn Left.